Welcome to the lazyfluency podcast, where we have casual conversations switching between English and Japanese, so you can learn from and with us along the way. I'm Joey.
And I'm Miami.
And the topic of the day is Japan is reopening? But before we get into that, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and or drop a review whatever platform you are listening on. We appreciate the support. And with that out of the way, Japan is reopening? The emphasis being a giant question mark, because we previously had a title or episode titled like this. And the reason we're doing it again is because Japan did not reopen and hasn't reopened multiple times. So the first question I have, because there's a lot that I decided to talk about under this same subject, is what do you think, like out of all the countries in the world, where do you think Japan ranks in terms of like a tourism? Like how many people go to Japan? Like where would it go? Like let's say, as out of like, you know what I'm saying, ranking. First, second, fifth, 10th, 20th, 30th.
昔はないで今ない。
2019. Yeah, 2019. So out of all the countries in the world, in terms of the total amount of foreign tourists per year, where do you think Japan ranks?
多分ね、ヨーロッパあたりがの多分なんかフランスとかスペイン、イタリアあたりが多分1位に来ると思うんだよ。
I can't tell you. I was saying the word. Okay.
で日本3位ぐらいだったかな ?2019 年は。で、
Not
今
even,
は
hold up. You said 3位?
3位
Wait, I'm talking about 2019年.
そう。
It was not 3位だよ.
あ、そう何位なの
No. It's like 30th, I think, or 33rd. It's not in the top 10.
あ、そうなのなんだ
Yeah, so, yeah, number one is France with 90 million. Number 2 is Spain with 83.7 million.
すごくない、
and number 3 is United States, 79.3 million.
あ、アメリカなんだ。
Then China, 65.7, Italy, Turkey, Mexico, Thailand, Germany, and the United Kingdom. But, I guess it was pretty close. What Japan was able to do was, it has had one of the highest increases in tourism out of any country in the world for like up until 2019 for like 10 consecutive years. So
伸び率が高いってこと
Yeah. So although it isn't in the top 10, if the trajectory from 2019 to continued through 2022, it would most likely be probably around number 5 or 6 and still climbing up, even though it was like all the way back in 30. And that's because I have some history here real quick, is Japan didn't even have a tourist board until 1912, and they didn't actually have it as like a public interest incorporated foundation until 2012. And what that really means is Japan doesn't have a very long history of letting other people into the country. I'm sure you're already aware of this, but just to give everybody this is a quick history of Japan. So in terms of its relationship with other countries. So 1543, I think you know this because this is taught in Japan schools, I think. But Portugal and Japan established a relationship. Portugal was, I think, the first country to ever go to Japan, coming through the southern archipelago. Yeah. And they, Portugal was spreading Christianity. And after around 70 or 80 years of Portugal's influence, Japan decided we don't want Christianity anymore. It is affecting our people too much. And so they went into, I don't know what the English is, but basically the like 200 plus years of isolation under the Tokugawa. In Japanese I know the word, but I don't know what the English is, or the English phrase for that like set period of time. And they continued to be in isolation until 1854, and that's when they were forced to open up from the U.S. Under an expedition headed by Commander Matthew Galbraith Perry. I think you guys know Perry, right? In Japan, that's talked about.
ペリー
I swear, I hear. Yeah, there's like Perry is his Pedi.
ペリー
I
に
hear
よ
it
ってあれ
referenced
なっ
in
た
like
の？おー
yeah, the
そうだった。
Perry expedition.
へえ。
This to say that if it wasn't even for the U.S., Japan may still very well to this day be in isolation. And as we know, it has returned to isolation. And because of that, I was surprised because just like you, I thought that Japan was ranked like in the top 3 out of the most popular countries in the world. We talked about this earlier, but previously Japan ranked, what was it, like in US, Australia, and some other in Canada. I think Japanese was the most desired to learn language.
うん。
Do you remember that?
うん。覚えてる。
Yeah. And it currently doesn't reflect that way, but Japan has had one of the highest growths, like I said, in history. It went from having like in 2012, before the Public Interest Board was established, it had like 3 million tourists a year, and it jumped all the way to 30 million as of like 2019. I think 2019 was like 30 point something million. So it like had a 5x growth in 10 years, which is crazy.
うん
Do you have any thoughts on that?
まあでもさっき言ってたようにさ、このまま2022年まで続けばかなりのハイランクに行ったはずなのに、このコロナのせいで、ね。ね、
Yeah.
下がっちゃったんでしょ、ランクが。
Yeah. Well, yeah, to go, well, it's not even on there. I'm looking at like the income, I'm looking at an income and revenue for Japan from tourism, and it just goes like really high and then just plummets straight down to 0.
だってなんだっけな。
Oh, don't worry, I have it open. I think I know what you're going to say. Yeah, the current Japanese yen to US dollar is 142 yen to 1 US dollar. When literally 2012, like 2012, it actually used to be 88 yen to 1 US dollar.
88?
88, yes. And I actually remember it being that low. And when I went to Japan, when I went to Japan, it was like 108, 109. And now it is all the way to 144. So in once, it's almost lost half its value in a 10-year span. So that's very impressive.
まあね、そうね、だからかなり海外旅行行くのもさ、日本人が海外旅行するのはなんか OK なんだけど、外国人が日本を観光するのが今制限されてる感じで、で、その円安だから、円安ドル高だからさ、その日本から海外に旅行するってなった時にめちゃめちゃお金がかかるんだよ。ね。
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a perfect segue. I also have right here that I'm looking at is the top 10 trending travel destinations. This is from jetro.go.jp. So there were 12 countries surveyed: South Korea, China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, USA, Australia, UK, and France. And out of all of these, they were surveying people in Asia, Europe, US, and Australia, basically asking, which country do you want to travel to the most? Where do you think Japan ranked in that?
あ、その中で。
Yeah.
Yeah,
this is post-COVID. I think it's 2022.
そこの国の人たちがってこと？
Yeah, they gave their opinion on which country they want to travel the most to post-COVID.
日本？
Yeah, Japan is Japan is number 1. Yeah, even though like I said previously, Japan hasn't even made the top 10 of any tourist ranking. It had this massive explosion, and it currently and it's not even close, by the way. So I'm looking at the survey. I'm trying to understand how this actually works on percentages, but it's like the second highest percent for any group, Asian, Europe, USA, and Australia, for any of the surveys, was 27.9%. And then Japan is in first place with 56.3% of people saying that they want to go to Japan. So it's almost double second place in terms of the amount of people for both in Asia, as well as in Europe, US, and Australia.
Oh.
And this isn't even to talk about the fact that Japan lost a bunch of money from not having the Olympics hosted at the same time. Now, given all of these things, do you have I have some other updates or whatever, but like information regarding the history of what's happened over here. But given all of this, the yen dropping so low, has anybody in Japan talked about bringing tourists in? Like even the elderly at this point, the yen is lost so much value. You have all these people wanting to come in. Like, what's the vibe? This is the vibe check 2.0. We did a vibe check a while ago. We're doing a vibe check again. Are people talking about tourism? Do people want tourism in Japan?
まあなんだっけ、観光地の人はさ、やっぱり収入減ってるから欲しいだろうけどさ。で、なんかどっかで見たんだけど、今来れるとしてもさ、添乗員がいないツアーでも可能になったけど、でも still ツアーなんだよ。
Yeah, no, that hasn't changed. I'm saying, are you feeling like there's any more pressure from people to be like, government, for the love of God, open up the country, where our yen, or actually no, you're hyped about the yen dropping in value, right? Because you get currency in US dollar.
あ、そう私まあね。
Are other people feeling that way? I saw some comments with people more bummed out about that because that's a huge dip. Before COVID, I think it was, let me look at this graph again. I'm pretty sure it was like around 100, 2019? Yeah, 2019, it was 108.
108?
And it was around, it was around 108, so 108 to $1. And it was around that for almost 4 or 5 years. And it was actually getting better like in the early pandemic. And then it went all the way 140. I'm not entirely sure why that is. I don't actually think it's specifically just tourism, but at the same time, people would love to give money to Japan in the form of tourism. And something I looked up is tourism is one of Japan's, although it's not in the top ranking for people going, it actually is, I think, the third highest in the world when it comes to expenditure. So like in businesses relate, like having a GDP related to tourism. But the thing is that this is all primarily domestic tourism, which I didn't know. Like Japan's tourism industry has a massive domestic portion. According to, in 2019, so this is from CNBC, but it's looking at the Japan Tourism Agency's statistics. It said overall tourism contributed 28 trillion yen, so $211 billion, to Japan's economy in 2019, with nearly 80% or 22 trillion yen coming from domestic tourists. Which is crazy. I didn't realize that. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
日本ってさ、やっぱさ、北海道から沖縄まであってさ、全然違うからさ、ね、
Yeah, but 80%? That's crazy.
ね。そうね。日本ってすごいんだよ。
Well, yeah, I just find it crazy that much of a chunk is coming from Japanese people going to other areas in Japan.
まあね。
Actually, the reason I have this specific like information up at the moment is because I had a conversation with my friend. I do believe we talked about this podcast. I'm not entirely sure, but I might talk about it again. We were discussing how different countries are dependent on tourism, and he's like, I think he was talking about how France was very dependent on tourism, saying, but the U.S. isn't. So even though the U.S. has a lot of tourism, it's not dependent on it. And then I thought, oh yeah, you have a point. But then I looked it up, and like I said, the majority of the GDP of their tourism has to do strictly with domestic travel. And so that actually made me even more concerned about them not opening up. Is even though there's a lot of potential in the industry for tourism, from what I remember, people were complaining about the foreign tourists. Like that's one of the reasons people want to stay close, especially in Kyoto. Because, you know what I'm saying? With like unruly, well, not unruly, just not Japanese tourists don't act like Japanese people.
そうね、だって今アメリカだとさ、マスクしなくてもいいじゃん。
Yeah. Well, not just mask, like talking on a train, playing music on a train. I knew somebody who went on a studied abroad in Japan who got into a fist fight with somebody in izakaya.
あ、そうなの？
Yeah, and it wasn't their fault. It was the person was drunk, and ended up just randomly like yelling at somebody, and then the local guards, or not the guards, but the workers at the izakaya were like, you can't be bothering guests like this, and then he got more agitated, and then just started like trying to fight them, and then he just got taken out, and then like the police just like completely beat the shit out of him. It was brutal. I saw pictures, but so that's not, I don't think that's representative of all tourists, but that's something.
まあね、だってでもね。
Anyways, I was wondering, like, is there an actual chance, do you think, of Japan? Like, what's your vibe? I have a current, like, documentation of, like, this is a Japanese blog, you have it open as well, about the history of this lockdown and what has happened since it's opened. Do you actually think we're heading towards Japan opening up, or do you think it's going to close back down again, or what's your sense of the current situation?
日本が開くかどうか、この先。
Yeah.
まあでも、人数も減ってるのは、そう、今なんかこう、波の、ちょうどこの下がるところの真ん中あたりなんだよ、多分。まだ下がりきってなくて、こんぐらいだから、もうちょっとしてここまで来て底辺まで来たら、まあ、なんか動きはあるんじゃないかなっていうのは思ってる。けど、そう、これでまたここからまた上がったら、もうね、ずっと鎖国じゃない。
I mean, something I heard was saying that apparently the reason that they're still in lockdown is not that they have a lot of cases, or I guess the more accurate statement, it's because in Japan they can't force hospitals to have open, like their government doesn't have the power to force hospitals to let them use their beds for coronavirus patients. So they're only able to use the hospital beds that hospitals decide they want to afford space to for coronavirus. And because of that, there's a very small amount of hospital beds that they can treat people with. And so I heard that's one of the reasons that Japan has been so hesitant about opening up, even like to this day.
まあね、だって、ベッドの数、病床数は、決まってるから、勝手に、足りないから増やそうっていうのはできなくて、ね。っていうのは、それ知ってたんだ。うん、そうそうそう。
Yeah. But the thing is, I, like other people, am thinking there's no way that it's going to stay closed until 2023. I mean, like, I'm sorry, not until, but like 2023, finally they'll open up. But looking at the history just makes me more and more unsure, and reading about the fact that, like I said, the majority of their domestic, the majority of tourism, like the money they get from tourism, comes from domestic travelers, makes me even less sure. Like the CNBC article I talked about earlier, the title is "Japan is about to welcome back foreign travelers, but domestic tourism remains its priority." And so just as a quick refresher, so 2020 spring, they started enacting the what's it called, isolation policies, and then those were in place like for strict isolation if you had the coronavirus. And then in 2020, what is this, November? You were able to travel there were exceptions made for if you were working in a business. And then in 2021, they again increased restrictions in travel. So from January to, January, February, March? And then all the way 2021 in November again, they lowered restrictions, allowed some people to come in, and then tightened it again. And going through this year, or like what happened this year, you have the Omicron strand coming out, and then you had a 14-day restriction put into place, and then it got lowered from 14 to 10, then to 7, and then they did fast. Well, no, so this was 2022 January, and then and then so it seems like it's slowly getting more and more opened up, but then it closed back down again, And we actually haven't, it seems like we're just cycling between like opening and closing and opening and closing.
そうだね。
And even now, so the current situation now is, and the reason we're talking about this is there's like another large update, was that they allowed it so you can now go to Japan if it's a group, but the thing that they changed is you no longer have to take a PCR test upon arrival into the country if you're already vaxxed. And they increased the amount of people able to travel into Japan from, where is it? From 20,000 to 50,000 a month. I think this is a month.
だけどさ、そのさ、来てもいいとか言ってるけど、なんか実際なんだっけな、なんか見たのが、6月何月かのその1ヶ月の旅行者数が確か600人とかで、1ヶ月にさ、何万人入れるみたいな言ってるけど、結局は何百人とかで終わってるからね。
Yeah, well, yeah. So I was actually trying to look into if there was data about exactly how many people are coming into Japan. But the problem is that they're tracking that information in terms of they're not. The data I was able to find said like 150,000, but that wasn't tourists. That was foreign arrivals, and business and school count as foreign arrivals.
あ、そうなんだ。じゃあもう実質ゼロかもしれない。ほぼゼロ。
Yeah, so tourism, I could not find information from the Japan's, what is it? Their board or whatever for travel. And that might be intentional, but like they're obfuscating that data. But yeah, I don't know. All I was able to see is like 150,000 came in July or something, but that includes students, that includes business, and that also probably includes people who have like family in Japan, but they're not Japanese themselves. I didn't see anything about tourism. Like, given that I only heard, like what you're saying, 600 people, whatever came, I assume it's a fairly small amount of actual tourism.
そうね。なんか、正直言うと東京行くとね、普通に外国人見るんだよ。多分それは多分もともと住んでるか、それから仕事できてるかってことが。なんか普通にいるんだよ。
Or they're studying abroad.
いや、なんかちっちゃい子もいるし、まあその、小学生。
Well, that's a family then.
かもね。もう、ここに住んでんのかな。
Well, I know there are some countries are less hesitant to do group tours.
あ、違う、多分アメリカだと思う。なんか喋ってるの聞いた感じ、アメリカっぽいなって感じ。
Were they in a group or something?
家族とその友達みたいな感じ。とか、この間お台場行った時とかもめっちゃ、結構見たよ。
Well, I don't know what they went through. Like I said, there's only the options that are currently available are
そうね。
you can go on a group tour. That's it.
密入国。
Yeah, maybe.
密入国。
I mean, at this point, that's kind of our only option. You got to see if we can get a ship. In China, that's an actual thing, right? Into Japan. I don't know if that's an actually big problem, but I've heard that some like the nearby countries actually illegally immigrate in Japan by ship.
あ、そうなの?
I've heard of it. I don't know how much of a problem it is. Seems like it'd still be difficult.
まあね、日本結構厳しそうだよね、そこら辺多分。手続きとか。
Yeah.
だから、わかんないけどどうか。
Yeah. But anyways, I basically just wanted, for those people like myself who are like, what is going on? What's the current situation? I was hoping that, hopefully this gave you guys an idea of where Japan currently is at. Japan has opened and closed multiple times, as we said before. The current situation is still group tours, but you don't have to get a test upon arrival. But historically speaking, Japan has opened and closed up multiple times. So not much we can say as far as I can see. Like the latest news was from like almost a week ago. So, and that was the most recent update. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Hi, we're back.
戻ってまいりました。
Yes. Yeah, we're gonna talk about life updates. So I think I can start first. Is it okay?
どうぞ。
Okay, so I played tennis with my friend like 2 days ago. Yeah. And I played it for 2 hours.
うん。
Yeah, yeah. That
よくやるの、テニス。
no. That was like for the first time in I guess more than 10 years. Yeah, I remember last time I played tennis was like in elementary school, so yeah.
授業のため、テニスやったの？
And no, that was with my dad. Oh, actually, yeah, I forgot that I played tennis in high school, yeah, as a PE class, so that's not 10 years ago. 5 years ago, maybe? Yeah.
サークルに入ってたと思ってたんだけど、そうなんか、私実は5年間ぐらいテニスやってたのを忘れてしまった。
No, it's just a
ただ、
PE
ただ
class.
PE。うん。
Yeah, yeah.
まあ私がもう最近始めたテニスで、もちろん足折れてるんだけど、まだ、でもほぼ治ってるから、その選手言ったと思うんだけど、ついに私もスポーツをやり始めてる。というか、やった。嬉しい。
Don't break your legs again. Yeah. I mean, yeah, foot. Yeah.
やるかもしれない。先週やったとき、なんというか、全然大丈夫だったんだけど、もしかして落ちたらもう一度折れるんじゃないかと思ってた。
No!
その着地したとき
No, Joey!
気をつけるんだけど、まあ、医師が言ってたのは、その6週間待った方がいい。その2週間前に。走る前とか、テニスやる前とか。でも、全然運動しないと、完全にダメな気分になっちゃうので。
Yeah. You need like...
その、折れる恐れももちろんあるんだけど、その、やらない人生の方が嫌なので、そのリスク、私にとってそんなに、まあ、やばくない。
Yeah. You need a certain, how do I say it, like, gravity, like, on your foot, actually. So, yeah, even though you have, like, broken
weight.
foot. So, yeah, weight, so.
Also.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe just do sports just a little bit. Yeah.
まあ、痛みによって行動してる今。そんなに痛くないなら、まあ、できる。
Yeah. Maybe biking?
ランニングに関してもそう。いや、そう、バイキングできる。全然。バイキングは全然大丈夫。そんなに。でも、ランニングに関しては大体できるんだけど、まあ、陸上やったことあるので、その、今の私は 60% ぐらい。100% は、突っ走りでしたっけ？まあ、思い出せないんだけど、スプリント。
全速力？
それは 100% であるなら、今は 60%。なんか走れるんだけど、なんかいっぱい走ると足がちょっと痛くなっちゃうぐらい。
Yeah. Just keep it in moderation. In moderation?
In moderation.
Yeah, そうね。あと、
でも、私が言いたいのは、その、足が完全に治ったとき、多分、もう、なんか今の時点で、秋はいつから始まるの？
Oh, that's a good question. The definition of fall.
いや、まあ、そういうことじゃなくて、なんか日本では寒くなってるの？
Yeah, actually, yeah. Like, so this week it's gonna be raining this whole week. So that's like a sign of like the end of summer, I guess. So probably September or October, that's the like the starting point of fall, I guess.
まあ、私が住んでるところでも寒くなってるので、実は今日 その外で育てられた植物をビニールハウスに移動したので、それなんていうか、最初に思ったのは、夏はもう終わり。なんか、まあ昨
You
日最初に
love
感じた
summer,
かもしれないん
right?
だけど、
Yeah.
そう。起きてから外に出て、なんか寒いなと思って、やはり、なんか、来たる秋と冬。
寒いでしょ。
もう、死ぬと思った。
うん
それで、完全に治った時、多分、その外楽しめないかも。
I heard like where you live has this like severe winter.
まあ日本が普通の冬だとそうかもしれない。でも結構厳しい。大学の方がめっちゃ悪かったなんだけど、そのマイナス50度、華氏度で、静止度だと、静止度だと大体同じだと思う。
Is it even possible to live?
マイナス40、まあ状況あったから多分。
Can't believe it. I've never
そんなことについ
experienced
て話し
that
たことある
cold.
かわかんないんだけど、その日になんか先生たちから、まあ授業あるんだけど、行きたくないならわかるみたいな。でもキャンセルされなかった。なんか多分仕事だったら、いや、仕事に行かなくちゃいけないんだけど、行かなかったらわかるんだけど、でも同時に行かないとクビになるんだから、自分でやりたいことを決めてくださいみたいな。それは catch-22 という英語で。
I know.
それ。
板挟みの状況かな、なんていうの。ジレンマ。
そう。大学、なんで、それはちょっとなんかダイエットっぽい状況になったんだけど、その日。なんかみんなメールで、大学に行かなくちゃいけないんだけど、先生から行かない方がいいというメッセージが来てるなんて、どういうことみたいな。
Like, did you go to the school?
そう。授業あったから。
I would definitely, don't go to school. Just stay at
まあ、私の大学は結構行かないと、キャッチアップがすごくやばいので、そう。で、ほとんどの人は行ったと思う。一番面白いことは、その、学校はそのジャケットとかは、配らなかった。でも、同時にその、なんか学校のメールで、自分がたくさんジャケットを持ってる人を他の生徒に手伝った方がいいというなんていうか命令じゃなかったんだけど、そのおすすめで、自分から何もしないんだけど他の生徒はジャケットを持っていたら他のジャケットを持ってない生徒に手伝ってくださいみたいな。
It's like to warm you up?
そう。すごく寒いので一つのジャケットだと足りない。マイナス50度になると。
I guess like if you have that severe coldness, then you need like a special like jacket to,
でもそれは珍しい。まあその地域は寒いんだけど、そのぐらい寒くない。普通は冬になるとマイナス10とか。でもマイナス10と50は結構違い。その差は大きい。あいみもそろそろの、まあ寒さの問題じゃないんだけど、この大事なテストあるでしょ。
Oh yeah, I do have important exams. So like I have, how do I say, national? Like 全国. How do you say 全国?
Yeah, national exams.
Yeah, national exams. And also in the same month, like I guess 1 week later, 1 week before that national exam, I also have this regular school exams. So
それ
I'm
確かにやばい。
yeah. I'm just struggling how to balance like the how do I say
schedule.
like how much effort should I should like put on
put
on
into each
each
thing. And
yeah.
so
so exam so
勉強に
Yeah.
関してはそれはすごく難しい質問。なんか課題と違って、課題は終わらせると、もちろん何もしなくていい。でも勉強に関してはすごく曖昧ので、
yeah
で、
Yeah.
まあ、うん。
yeah so just if I want to get like higher scores in regular exams then that's gonna like ruin my national exam studying so yeah so I'm やばいよI'm やばい I'm やばい
優しいコメントを送ってください。リスナーさん。
Please
頑張れのコメント募集。
yeah
And we're back with the final section.
but before we
And silence. Yeah. But before we get into the final section conversation, send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com. We do not have an email this week. So, I mean, that means you should send one. That means if you send one, you're basically guaranteed to get a response. Also, Apple
今のう
reviews.
ちだよ有名になる前にね、今のうちに。
Yeah, exactly. So this week, in light of me wanting Japan to open up, I wanted to talk about not my favorite place in Japan. That is reserved for something that I won't mention because I'm probably going to do a bigger video on it. But my favorite, I'll say my second favorite place in Japan that is now closed. So it doesn't actually, the place I went to does not exist anymore. I'm pretty sure because of the pandemic, it went out of business, or at least one of the branches of it went out of business. But it's called Anata no Warehouse, so your warehouse. And you haven't heard of this, right? Or you said you haven't
聞
seen
いた
this
ことな
before?
い。あ、これさ、DVD ショップじゃないよね。
No,
じゃあ知らないわ。
no.
知らない。
Yeah. So this is there are other branches of this in places of Japan. So if Japan does open up, I recommend checking one of them out because Anata no Warehouse, at least to the one in Kawasaki, the one I went to, is a 5-floor arcade. And every like Anata no Warehouse has its own like theme or thing that like is extremely unusual about it. And so the one in Kawasaki was modeled after the, what is it called? Like 150-year-old cities in China. So the walled city. I'm not sure I don't think it exists anymore, but there used to be something called like the walled cities. And it was in between the territory that the Britain had, like China and Britain had obviously a history of like taking land from each other, or I guess Britain took land from China, whatever. And then for one period of time, there was like a zone that was under ambiguous jurisdiction. And so neither like country messed with that land. And over time, that land like developed a giant wall around it. Or I don't know if it actually was a literal wall, but like everything got very, very dense with housing and everything. And so people in there developed like their own little world. And this warehouse was built with like trying to copy the vibe of that location. So, you're looking at pictures, but basically the building looks like a decrepit, like almost ruin, like it's going to fall over from the outside. But that's intentional. It's completely structurally sound.
これ、廃墟みたいよ。
Also, yeah, exactly. It looks like ruins. But on top of that, there are no windows in the entire building. At least when you walk inside.
なんて言うんだろう。すごいさ、なんだ、縁起が良くないけど、ここでさ、なんかさ、地震とか起きたらさ、もう最悪よね。逃げられないじゃん。窓もないし。
Well, if there are no windows, that means no glass.
So
maybe that's a good thing. But Yeah, so it's actually, like I said, it's an arcade. Or I guess it's more than an arcade. Every floor also has its own, like, what would you call, setup is what I'll describe it on, like its own purpose, dedicated purpose. Like, and when you walk in, there are these giant, like, automatic doors. There's nobody there. There are no employees in the entire building that you can see. They are there, but they're behind these doors, like these customer service doors. And I only think I saw one person walking by who's like sneaking around, because the whole vibe of the place is supposed to be no one is there. There is nobody, like, you can't see from the outside, and it's supposed to be like you're in the walled city. And so it is a business though. So how they make money is all the like arcade services, whatever, have their quarter dispensaries, and they have like food in different locations and vending machines. And each floor, I think there's beer at the very top, but from what I remember, the first floor is like arcade. Second floor is like tabletop games like ping pong, pool. And then the third floor was like a casino. And that one was crazy because it's like gambling, although it's illegal. So maybe with pachinko and some other stuff and whatever way Japan does it. But there's nobody there. There are no customers. So I didn't actually gamble, so I'm not sure how it worked, but it's so weird. It's seeing a bunch of people gamble in a room. No customers? No, sorry, no customers, no workers.
No workers. No customers.
Yeah, yeah, there were customers. There were customers, but the fourth floor, I cannot remember, but the fifth floor was a bar. And so, and the funny thing about the fifth floor is the fifth floor had a completely different vibe from the rest of the entire place. It was like purple and pink and looked like a dream sequence. That's the only way I can explain it. It was like...
階によって違うんだ。階によって雰囲気が。
Yeah, the vibe, floors 1 through 4 all had the very ruined, decrepit vibe, but the purpose is different. The fifth floor was straight up just completely different, and it had like this weird, ethereal, dreamy vibe to it. And they had like a mannequin bartender who was there, like not a real person, like who was just standing there, like a waiter.
ゲーセンじゃなくてお化け屋敷じゃん。
No, because everything you can still do everything. We played in the arcade and it was awesome. And it was actually raining. It was actually raining the whole time, and it was like at night, so it gave this really cool vibe across the entire like atmosphere of the location. And it's so different from any other store I've ever went to, when the customer service in Japan is very in your face in terms of like introducing themselves, or when you leave, when you enter a store. And they're all very procedural. So to have a place that was completely separated from all of that was really sick. But can you see the pictures? Yeah.
今見てるけどさ、川崎だけが潰れたの。他の場所はまだ生き残ってるってこと？
I mean, it seems Anata Warehouse is a brand, it looks like. So I think there are other ones. Like if on the homepage that I just linked to you, it seems like they have some other crazy looking Anata Warehouse in other areas. But what I should have mentioned was also cool, or not really cool. So part of the aesthetic that they decide to keep is it does not just apply to the floors, it also applied to the bathrooms. So the bathrooms, the windows were like scratched out, and there's only some, like you can only, and foggy, so you can only see through some of the glass. And the toiletries and soap was like hanging on a little bag. I think everything was technically hygienic because the toilets were immaculate, but everything aside from that was extremely intentionally gross looking, but it was clean.
嫌で使いたくないそれ。これなんか見てる感じさ、ゲームあれだね。対戦格闘ゲーム、ビデオゲーム、カードゲーム、音楽ゲーム、麻雀ゲーム、ドライブゲーム、プリクラ、ダーツ、キッズゲーム、メダル、パチンコ。なんか、なんだろう、パチスロ。なんだろうね。まあ、大人が遊ぶ用なのかな、これ。
Yeah, I think it's well, I think that's a good point. I don't think they have any way to monitor. They might have cameras everywhere. Even though, like I said, nobody's there, it seems like there are no workers there. they're still trying to create an atmosphere, like a very specific atmosphere. So like on the first floor, when you walk in, you can hear a bunch of Chinese speaking and like lights going on. Although they're not actual people. I think it's recordings. So it's hard to get a grasp of what is like, how much of it is other people and how much of it is like machines or other stuff that they have trying to create this atmosphere. The coolest part about it is all free. You can just, like I said, because there are no customers no workers. You literally just walk in, do whatever you want, and then leave.
待って。でもゲームするのにはお金必要じゃん。
Yeah, but you pay directly to the machine. So
そういうこと、
you don't have to
入場
pay
料
to
がいら
enter.
ないってことね。
Yeah, exactly. There's no entrance fee.
へえ、
Yeah.
じゃあその
But
川崎
it was so sick.
見た
But
感
like I
じす
said,
ごい。
the Kawasaki branch, I'm sorry to report, as far as I know, like 2 years ago, because of the pandemic, it wasn't explicitly said, but I'm pretty sure because of the pandemic, shut down. Or I heard there was a separate theory in Japanese Twitter saying that it wasn't for financial reasons, and there was some other reason that it shut down. Maybe a relationship thing between an owner or something. I'm not entirely sure, but it seemed like financially Kawasaki was doing great because the place was sick. I have this habit of my favorite places I go to getting shut down. Even like where I'm currently living, my 3 favorite stores all shut down. And I just like, I feel it's painful because it's like, if I like a store, apparently that means that it's not monetarily viable to open or whatever.
ねえ。ブックオフ潰れないといいね。ブックオフ大好きだもんね。これ潰れちゃったけど。
Oh, yeah.
なるほどね。
That bell means we've reached the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining us in another lazy conversation towards fluency. If you have any language-related questions and or just looking for some general advice, send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com and we might respond in the next episode. Also, make sure to check out our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and more. We'd appreciate the support. This has been Joey.
Naomi.
Signing off. じゃあねー。
じゃあねー。